vernacular architecture. Vernacular means everyday, the ordinary, homes that we live in, businesses that we frequent, the everyday places and spaces that we go into, in our lives. A small cottage, a small cabin, an adobe house here in New Mexico. So not the grand homes of presidents and auto barons and people like that. Those have been documented, those have been preserved, but these are the everyday places and spaces that people live and work and frequent. And they have rich stories to tell, the same as a large fancy house of a rich person. So that has been really a fun, interesting, and important field that we have been engaging in, particularly with the Route 66 groups, is that we are trying to tell the stories of everyday people, not just elitist stories, right? Well, certainly Southwestern themes were a big part of the Roots' iconic imagery. The El Don sign at the El Don Motel with the cowboy. I notice a lot of fonts on neon signs that have that mid-century feel to it, or that script sort of font that you see, in the 50s, You see, like the People's Florist, the El Camino Motel and Diner on 4th Street has that wonderful script font to it that looks so 1950s. I think that's so cool. Certainly there have been efforts up and down the route through different states, different efforts to preserve buildings and signage. Albuquerque, I would say, has a lot of opportunity here to preserve buildings and signage down the route. I would say we have a great inventory. A lot of it needs some love.
I think New Mexico is it's not a distinct case by any means. A lot of traveling through the West, from the Midwest, from the East Coast. This is true also with rail travel. Selling the local culture, what many scholars call the local exotic, to white travelers in particular, moving from a very different place out to the West. What do you portray as your local culture? What's the local selling point, right? What are the unfamiliar cultures that, maybe some white Americans were not used to encountering until they started moving out west, again, either on the train or via car on Route 66. So we see a lot of Native American portrayals, maybe representatives of, or representations of Native Americans that were not even in New Mexico, right? The idea that one Native American is every Native American is incorrect, it's damaging, and it's all over neon signs. And the same is true with Latinos, I could say that more generally, but Mexicans, Mexican Americans, and Spanish Americans here in New Mexico, where you often see on a Mexican restaurant, even though they serve New Mexican food, an individual underneath a saguaro cactus that we don't have in New Mexico, sleeping, with his sombrero pulled over his eyes. And that has come to mean a lot of different things, I think, in particular for the Mexican American and Hispanic Chicano communities, where are we taking a nap? Are we lazy? So reinforcing some of those very damaging stereotypes as well that, you'll see people resting and not necessarily working. The land of mañana is a common way to describe that.
There is a lot of opportunity here in Albuquerque to restore and preserve and revitalize and capture the imagination of people that live here or travel. We actually have a lot of great initiatives here at University of New Mexico related to Route 66, almost more than I can tell. We had an Albuquerque documentation project where we had a wonderful graduate fellow here, Donatella Davanza, who is a photographer by profession who is doing her doctorate. Donatella walked the entirety of Route 66 in Albuquerque from one end to the other, from the Route 66 casino down to the mountains. And she took photographs of every single building, every single piece of public art, every single sign, every single open space or community space. And I called it proactive archiving. So usually archiving is more reactive, right? You're taking in a donation, or someone's giving you something, or you're sort of developing a collection. But this was one where we actually went out and we were saying, no, we need to document our section of Route 66 here, because then we have a moment in time, right? Then we have a comparison. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we will have that in the archives forever.
So during my doctorate study here at UNM, and I study a doctorate in American Studies, and I study also for the Historic Preservation Program. And I had a great opportunity to work for the Center of Southwest Research. I was a fellow, and I documented Central Avenue from Trainway to the casino. I documented every single building. This was in 2013 and 14. And so we created a new photographic archive for the center. Photography is my ethnographic tool for many years during my research. And through photography, through the visual, I try to capture something behind the surface. So I try to capture, to explore a building. When I take photo on a building, I go around the building. I try to understand this structure, what this place tells me. And so all details can be very important and significant. Photography is an incredible help to go inside a place. I aim to offer a new visual perspective to capture which forces are beyond that. So cultural, social, economic, ideological. So which elements created this place and what this place preserves of that and tells me. So when I take photos, I spend time in front of the building. When I discovered Route 66, because it was an incredible discovery for me at that time, there are so many peculiarities of this road. And so because, again, I had the opportunity to walk, I had the time to examine the building. And so, for example, I discovered some symbols of Route 66, how people use these symbols in souvenirs, in murals, in so many different kind of art also. So I focus on the number 66, obviously, and then the shield, so the main symbols of Route 66 era, and then the diagonal, because the diagonal of Route 66, so I mean the course from Chicago to Los Angeles, is unique in the US. It's not a common highway east to west and north to south, but it's very different course. So this diagonal you can find in souvenirs, in murals, in many ways, in many representations. So for me, these three elements represented the symbols of Route 66 and was part of my research also for the dissertation. Looking at these signs and the material, the composition, the size, the style, the materiality, you can understand the history of these signs. Signs are very important to preserve the history not only of Route 66, but in general, so the culture of the people also. Many times we don't have the building anymore. We have just an empty lot, and we have only the sign that remember us what was before. So the signs preserve the history. So we have to preserve them and try to rehabilitate it if we need that.